I had ordered a synthesis of NN-DMT from an online source and was waiting quite impatiently a couple of days for the compound to arrive. I had experimented with DMT in the past, providing me with profound epiphanies and the inexpressible leap into hyperspace. I was eager to go there again. Being a daily cannabis user, I'd smoked a couple bowls of good weed early in the morning and was slightly stoned when the doorbell rang. Much to my delight, it was FedEx. After signing for the package, I closed the door and ripped it open. Inside was a baggie of pure oxide white powder labeled Chem 20. My very first mistake was not contacting my source to verify the chemical code label. I measured out 50 milligrams of the fluffy white powder and proceeded to smoke it in a freebase pipe. Set and setting was perfect. I was in a great state of mind, the next few days ahead of me totally free. Spangle was playing on the DVD player and it was the first month of spring. After smoking, I realized there was something wrong. The vapor did not burn my lungs the way DMT did in the past. I laid down and waited. After 5 minutes, I became worried. I was obviously tripping, but it was weak. It lacked the bang of DMT. Eyes closed, the visuals resembled a very colorful version of 2C-E, but I was also seeing blue cyberpunk-esque creatures morphing into a myriad of other strange beings. I thought the synthesis was weak or the potency was quite low due to the instability of tryptamine molecules. My next big mistake was smoking the other pre-measured 50 milligrams of the powder. I lied down for a while with closed eyes expecting hyperspace, but alas, all I got was more of the same, greatly intensified. I thought, well, that sucked, and looked at my watch. It had been 15 minutes since the first dose. I expected to be coming down soon, but much to my chagrin, the effects started intensifying. I started tripping harder than I ever had for several years and was steadily growing stronger. With an intense surge of energy, I decided to take a walk in the local park thinking I could walk it off. I walked for maybe a half an hour and my agitation was increasing rapidly. How could this be? It's a physical impossibility to be tripping so long and so hard and in such a way after an hour of smoking DMT. I remember thinking if something I had consumed earlier caused MAOI activity, but could not recall anything. I called a friend on my cell asking for help. He was at work. Having no benzos on hand, I kept asking if he can give me some Xanax. He told me he didn't have access to those meds. I decided to walk back home. On the way through the crowded park, a cannabis dealer who I knew spotted me. He was among a couple of friends smoking joints there. He invited me to sit down and join them. I decided to be polite and did so. After taking a few puffs, I realized my internal chaos was being potentialized by the cannabis. I remember them looking at my pupils, which were probably insanely big at the time. I politely asked to leave and left. On the way home, I bought 2 beers thinking maybe they can bring me down for some reason. When I got back home, 2 hours had passed and I was tripping even harder. It seemed I hadn't even reached the peak yet. After drinking the beers and smoking a few more bowls, I thought, okay, this is getting worse. I decided to call my sister, who was a medical intern only a couple months away from graduation. She was very worried and decided to come over, but also had no idea how to get any benzos for me. I told my wife on MSN that I smoked DMT and something abnormal had happened. She left work right away to come home. My state of mind was absolutely bonkers. I was extremely agitated, had no idea why I was tripping so hard and why I was taking so long. In that warped state, I managed to email my source explaining my situation and mentioning the chemical label on the baggie. I soon got a reply. They had accidentally mixed the chemicals, and what I had smoked was actually 100 milligrams of 2C-E. After that point, I managed to calm down a little, realizing the potency and the duration of the chemical. By the time my sister and wife came home, I had smoked around 5 grams of White Widow strain cannabis and was popping in and out of reality in waves like a high dose of 2C-E does. However, this was my very first time on this particular compound, and I only had a few phenethylamine reference points, which were 2CB, 2CC, 2CI, methylone, MDA, and MDMA. 2CE was deeply introspective, and I felt like I was diving headlong down the rabbit hole with no way back out. I suspect the darkness aspect I feel from 2CE is due to its introspective nature. It has very powerful visuals, but also has the potent self-analytical properties of LSD. Therefore, I was forced to look into the mirror of my psyche for most of the trip. When my wife and sister got home, I calmed down a little, and my wife told me to take a shower, which I did, and it was one of the most profound moments in my life. I have no idea how long the actual shower lasted for, but on the Shulgin scale, I was at a +4. I have only been in such a state 3 times before in my life, once on a high dose of cyancopolandia mushrooms and twice on NN-DMT. As the water splattered around me, they created endless fractal micro-universes inhabited by microscopic wonders, strange creatures that multiplied infinitely around me singing enchanting melodies of cosmic oneness and about the multiverses that lie beyond. I was utterly dumbfounded. I cannot even begin to explain the cosmic explosions that were taking place right then and there in my shower and in my inner space respectively. But as all good things must come to an end, so did this. As soon as I got out of the shower, my state of bliss was replaced again by the hardcore anxiety of overdosing on a novel substance that was completely new to me. My wife put on some Simpsons episodes which I could not understand at all and found unbelievably funny. I laughed myself silly for about a half an hour and had to make myself stop as I had the impression that my wife would think I was going mad. That was the turning point. The thought stuck and the fear of madness grew inside of me like a psychedelic tumor. I was slowly going nuts. As these thoughts raced through my mind, my visuals changed into a more stylized, surreal circus freak show. The pink elephants from Dumbo, coupled with bouncing multicolored rabbits, circled around me singing, "He's lost it, he's lost his marbles." This continued for several hours, and as the visuals danced around me, I started becoming aware of my physical discomfort. I had severe back and neck pains, all my muscles were tightly knit, I had major teeth grinding, and a hell of a lot of fatigue. The problem was I was still tripping my ass off with no end over the horizon. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't sit still. I kept pacing back and forth around the house as my wife and sister watched. This increased my agitation and anxiety as I thought they believed I had lost my mind. This in turn potentiated the chaos in my psyche and brought forth more psychotic hallucinations. Anyway, this continued for about 4 more hours, during which I smoked another 5 grams of cannabis and drank a bottle of wine to relax, but it was doing no good. I kept persisting and badgering my sister that I needed Xanax, Haldol, or Thorazine. I was in desperate need of an abort. Soon after, my sister and wife left to the hospital where my sister was an intern to get some meds for me. During that time, I smoked about 3 to 4 more grams of cannabis, found a bottle of absinthe in a cupboard and drank all of it, and raided the medicine cabinet and took about 10 Incidin tablets and about 3 ergotamine tablets. They didn't seem to do too much, so I also downed half a bottle of passion flower extract. Being in such a state, I could not realize my stupidity. They finally got home and managed to give me 2 Haldol tablets and a bar of 2 mg Xanax. My sister told me to try the Haldols first. After about 1 to 2 hours of waiting, they didn't seem to do too much, but the visuals lessened considerably. I then took the Xanax and fell asleep soon after. I awoke the next morning. I was not tripping, but the physical and psychological symptoms continued. I soon worked myself into a state of high anxiety and the muscles all over my body were extremely tense. During that day, I secretly smoked the rest of my pot, drank all the spirits in the house, and finished the passion flower extract and the Incidin tablets in order to calm down, which didn't do much for me. Then, among my stash, I found some Blue Lotus resin extract times 15. I ate a gram which calmed me down for a few hours until I was at my agitated state again. It had become nighttime by now, and I swallowed the remaining 1 gram of the Blue Lotus extract, which put me to sleep. I awoke the following day with the same symptoms and was increasingly agitated with massive anxiety. I thought I had literally gone mad. The entire day was a nightmare, and that night I convinced my sister to get me a box of Valium. This is where I spiraled out of control. To control my panic attack, I ate the diazepam like candy, finishing the box within 2 days, so I was told. I don't remember much of those days as I was in a zombie-like state. When they were finished, my anxiety returned even worse, and I convinced a friend who was prescribed clonazepam to give me 7 tablets, which I consumed in 1 day, so I am told. Again, I don't remember much of this. When those were all gone, I went nuts again and told my wife and sister to take me to the hospital. I was admitted into the psych ward for 2 days and 1 night, where I was given an IV drip and diazepam surrounded by clinically insane patients. My wife and sister were with me the entire time and I couldn't have gotten through without them. The doctors didn't want to let me go, but since they knew my sister, they let it slide. They had no idea what 2C-E was, they had never heard of it before, and I'm pretty sure I'm the very first and only case of 2C-E hospitalization in my country. I convinced the doctors there to prescribe me clonazepam and we left for home. The following week is a haze which I don't remember at all. Apparently I was consuming 5 to 7 tabs of clonazepam a day and turned into a zombie, asking the same questions over and over again, and forgetting I took a pill and kept taking more. The memory loss was huge. Friends came to check up and visit me. I don't remember any of it. After a week of this, my sister, wife, and my mom got me an appointment for a good psychiatrist. Thankfully, she cut the benzos right then and there and wrote me a prescription for Inderol, a beta blocker for anxiety, and trazodone for the insomnia. After that, I started to get better. I decided to kick my 12-year daily cannabis addiction, but the timing was all fucked up as I lived through 2 weeks of total insomnia and depression from hardcore benzo withdrawals and going cold turkey off the pot. Instead of ending this harrowing trip report here, I would also like to add the final cosmic slap in the face. About 13 days after recovery, having kicked my pot and benzo addiction, the cops arrived at my door with a search warrant. Apparently a neighbor spotted the 30 cannabis plants growing in my greenhouse, which I had neglected for those 2 to 3 weeks. I had planned to destroy them or give them away, but was currently living with my sister and mom with my wife as a sort of rehab. Anyway, while the cops were questioning me and taking the plants, my sister managed to flush my huge stash in the freezer down the toilet and throw the rest out the window before they got to it, which was a considerable loss. I had a few sheets of very clean LSD, 2 grams of DMT, the source mailed it to me 2 days after the disaster, a lot of DPT, some AMT, a fair bit of ibuprofen and miprofen, half a kilogram of Hawaiian mushrooms, half a kilogram of Colombian mushrooms, a hell of a lot of bromo dragonfly, DOC and DOI blotters, a big jar of 25 times salvia extract, 4 to 5 grams of mescaline, 2 kilograms of Mimosa hostilis root bark, 3 kilograms of Psychotria viridis, a huge bag full of Banisteriopsis caapi and a huge stock of Harmala extract, 3 grams of pure MDMA crystals, 5 grams of methadone, that fateful gram of 2C-E, 500 milligrams of 2C-C, and 2 grams of 2C-B. I had much more, but I can't remember what else I had in there. Oh well, live and learn. The cops then took me and processed me. After 6 months, my court case was up, and I was very, very lucky to just get away with a warning. I managed to talk the judge down from an equivalent $50,000 fine or 1 year jail. After all this happened, what affected me deeply and really hurt me was having to put my wife and family through my suffering. Even though everything is now back on track and better than ever 1 year later, I really regret having to drag my wife and mother through so much pain. I have learned a great respect for psychedelics, and 4 trips a year is all I need now to experience the indescribable.